What's up, everybody? It's Tony Wiggins here with Locked On Jaguars. What are they going to do, man, at coach? And then little birdie dropped a little rumor on me and said that if the draft was today, that they'd be trending towards taking, they being the Jaguars, would be trending towards taking Aiden Hutchinson. And I put that on Twitter and all hell broke loose. I'll tell you why in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Jaguars here on a Tuesday, and we appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. And reminding you that we are also free on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe. You don't have to pay a thing. That's right. Here on Locked On Jaguars. Local, your team, every day, all of that stuff right here. This is what we got today, man. I set Twitter on fire this morning by revealing that a source in the know told me that the team, the Jaguars, that if the draft ended today, now this is all fluid. There's one of my favorite sayings now. That means that it could change at any minute, right? But the evaluation process, no one set a board. No one's done any of that. This is just a feeling from people that have been around and been in the room with the folks that do have to make the decisions that, and right now that's still Trent Baalke. He's still the GM. There's still a bunch of scouts. They absolutely love Aiden Hutchinson. They didn't compare it to anyone else. They didn't do any of that. But I do think that there's a handful of people that believe that he's the best player in the draft. Twitter got set on fire today when I brought that up because Jags fans they're off of that. Me personally, I've never been on that train. Not that I don't think Aiden Hutchinson is a good player. I do. I just think he's a good player in the mold of Chris Long, a little bit of Justin Smith. I love high motor guys. Don't get me wrong, but I love high motor guys who also have high talent. And I don't think he's special in that way. And so I understand why the Jaguar fan base erupted and went crazy, especially after they saw what he didn't do against Georgia. I mean, he just looked normal playing against, for the most part, against Jamari Salyer, who's projected to be a guard on the next level and couldn't get around him. So he just doesn't have the same effect to me on the game that some other guys do. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, though. We're talking about the draft because before the draft, there's this thing called free agency, right? And that comes first. But even before that, there's this thing called actually having a football coach on your team to lead your team. And that's going to come before the draft. For some reason, the Jaguars still don't have a coach yet, but it's trending towards Byron Leftwich. If the reports that we're all hearing are correct, Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator for the Colts, has also been interviewed a second time. For what I get, let me explain to you what I get from these two groups. Eberflus is a very impressive dude if you talk to him. And I once told, my mom actually said this about me to my grandmother, and I actually ended up repeating it about my kids to someone who was going to watch them for a couple of weeks. And I'll quote it. Don't let him start talking. He's going to convince you. That my grandmother, my mom said it about me. My mom said he's a negotiator. It's like talking to a little lawyer. That kind of worked for me in certain vernaculars of my life, but I digress because it's a family show. However, I ended up recognizing those traits in my kids. Just don't even listen to him. Don't look him in the eyes like looking at a little reindeer. He's going to fool you, okay? And that's what I heard about Matt Eberflus. And I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I heard that if he walks into that room and starts talking, you ain't gonna be able to shut him up, and you ain't gonna want him to shut up. You want him to keep going because that's just how impressive of a guy he is. And so I'm not surprised or shocked that he got a second interview because there's just certain people that have certain characteristics about him, and that's one that I've heard about him. Now, I'll tell you something I give him credit for. The one is making that defense what it is. Two, in Indy. Two, I know Jaguar fans are like, they couldn't stop us. Yeah, whatever. But the other thing that I can tell you is that he was hired by Josh McDaniels to be his defensive coordinator and join him in Indy. And that was before McDaniels reneged on the job, and Eberflus was still standing there, and he left his job, obviously, as the linebackers coach in Dallas. And Jim Irsay just, hey, man, we're going to name a coach. Would you stay? And Frank Reich agreed to it. So just for the way that went down and the quirky way that happened, and for him to say, yeah, man, that shows that he's adaptable to me. And it also shows the amount of respect that Frank Reich had for him, because that wasn't his first choice, but then they worked out and they're still okay. And they're very, very good defensively. I like what he does defensively. He keeps everything simple. He doesn't, and in this business, we need guys that are grown men that are not petulant children running a football team the way we've had. And they just need an adult. Okay, an adult who's a great communicator. I think Byron Leftwich is the same way. Byron is a guy, I think, who will galvanize free agents and make guys want to come play here. And he's one of them. He's a football player's player. I mean, he is a part of that fraternity of former NFL players, and he is well respected and well liked by every single person who's ever played with him. And I think that means something. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it depends on the staff. As a pet peeve of mine, well, it depends on the staff. Every coaching hire depends on the staff. I don't care how good the head coach is or what his reputation is. If his staff is crap, then the team's going to be crap. Okay, so every coaching hire, you need a good staff. So folks keep saying that. I'm going to assume if they hire either one of those guys, that the Jaguars will be able to get free agents. So we're going to look at some free agents and some people that I think can help this team. We're going to do that first. Okay, we're going to do that first. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about Aiden Hutchinson and some of the rest of these guys in the draft. So hang in there, stand by, don't move, don't go anywhere. We are going to discuss all of these things here on the Tuesday edition. By this time of day, it's a drive time edition of Locked On Jaguars. BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website. Sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to get started. Now, from football, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, and right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts and where your podcasting day starts. Should be here on Locked On Jaguars, because it's local, it's your team, it's every day, and it's free on all platforms. And we thank you for making us your first listen. I got to let you guys know that thanks for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen every day. But there's a big announcement. The Peacock and Williamson NFL Show podcast is going on the road to LA for Super Week. Follow the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show today to get the most comprehensive coverage of the big game. It's free and available on all platforms. I wish there were more free agents available, but we got to do with what we have to do with. The question comes up, do the Jaguars sign an injured player? Do they make an attempt to sign Chris Godwin or Michael Gallup with both of them being out with an ACL? That's a hard thing to do. But ACL injuries are and even with Cam Akers' injury with the Achilles, these things don't seem like they're lasting and having the devastating effects over a long period of time. So would I be shocked if the Jaguars went after someone who's injured? Yeah. I really would, but I take a chance on a proven wide receiver who has an injury than a wide receiver who still has something to prove, like your own guy, DJ Chark. I know the injuries are a little bit different. Ones the other two guys I mentioned have knee injuries. DJ Chark had an ankle injury, but still, uh, I think what you have is more of a proven commodity, especially maybe not with Gallup so much, but because Gallup's been out a lot, but especially with Chris Godwin, especially if Byron Leftwich gets this job, he knows him very, very well. So that would be something that I look at. The other receivers, and the reason why I'm mentioning the receiver position, because it's obviously the one where they really, really have to find some people to help Trevor. You saw this weekend with Gabriel Davis and Debo Samuel, and how important, and of course, Cheetah. You saw how Cooper Kupp, obviously. You can't have a great quarterback without having a difference maker or two or three catching the ball these days in the NFL. So it's going to be imperative that they get something. Mike Williams. I think Mike Williams from the Chargers is a guy. I don't know what the Chargers are looking at under the cap, but he's definitely a guy you got to at least take a look at. If the price is right, you got to get a slot receiver, and Christian Kirk will be available in free agency. You got to take I think, a long look at a guy like Christian Kirk. But there's something that's really, really interesting here, and it's at play. Whether we're talking about Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and I've mentioned this before, exploring the possibility of a DK Metcalf trade. All of these guys, Cheetah, all of the guys I just mentioned, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, all of these guys, none of them were first round picks. They were all second round or later. So it begs you to answer this. It leads you to answer this question or ask this question of yourself. Is it too much right nowism that we look at Jamar Chase and say, I want a receiver with our first draft pick, or move down and take a receiver in the top 10? Is that too much like right nowism, or being in the moment so much and thinking and worrying about that you're going to make a boneheaded decision? I see a lot of folks on social saying they're looking at what's going on in the NFL right now and the teams that are doing it, and they're saying we need to use our draft picks on that stuff right now. You don't necessarily. I get it. I get it. I get it. Trust me. I just don't think Jacksonville as a whole, and this is why I kept talking about the offensive line, and I kept talking about other areas of this defense or this team, offensively and defensively, where people just wanted to just look past it and look at the one thing, which was wide receiver. They want to look at the one thing that's to them is a glaring weakness, and ignore the fact that these other areas aren't as tight as you think they are. I don't think the Jaguars are in the position to cherry pick past the best available player. I think this entire organization needs just a jolt of best players. Go through the teams that are left in the playoffs if you want to do some right nowism. Go to the teams in the playoffs and look at the guys that are their best players. Take the six best guys. And I made this point when I was talking about the 49ers. The most important position is the quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo ain't one of their six best players. I'm going to name their six best players for you. Debo Samuel, in no particular order. Debo Samuel, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Fred Warner, the linebacker, Nick Bosa, the edge rusher, and probably Eric Armstead, the defensive tackle, right? To me, those are their six best players. To me, they may have the best six players, or they may have the best top six in the NFL, because they're all at certain positions that allows the 49ers to operate the way that they want to operate and function. And they know who they are better than anybody. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, then I think the Jaguars ought to say, okay, who are our six best players, and who are the guys that we can add in free agency or the draft that will allow us to have six guys that Wade could mention that could rival any other 6 guys. Okay, your best players on this team is Trevor Lawrence, James Robinson, Miles Jack, Josh Allen, probably Tyson Campbell, and probably Devon Hamilton. That ain't it. That ain't enough. So if you go out and you add Mike Williams and then you come back in the draft in the very first pick, you add Evan Neal, who can block any of these jokers that's in the draft. And by the way, you'd be hard pressed for me to not tell you, and I understand being a prospect, but I'm going to talk about some of these defensive ends and these edge rushers that are in the draft. And I'm going to tell you why I think some guys that are getting drafted behind them, and I'm sitting here talking about wide receivers going in the second round. There's some edge rushing guys that's going in that second round that might be just as good as the guys that go in the first. So we'll talk about that too. But I just think the Jaguars are in a position, and this is why I think they need to hurry up and get a coach, because I'll be at the Senior Bowl next week. There are going to be some draft eligible players at the Senior Bowl. They need to figure out who the leader is so they can find some sort of direction that they're going to go into. They're not in a position to cherry pick past just the best absolute possible player that they can get in the draft. But free agency comes first. So whatever they address in free agency, obviously will affect what they do when it's time to start drafting. Like if they go and get Harold Landry to play opposite Josh Allen, that means they're not going to pick an edge rusher, right? If they go and get Mike Williams and Christian Kirk to play receiver, that's 2 guys. They're probably not going receiver in the first or second round, especially if they re-sign DJ Chark. You only have so many roster spots. So it's a very, very important decision that they have to make, not only right now with the coach, but they have to make a decision on direction. Let's talk about some of the draft stuff, and we'll do it in just a second here on the third and final segment on a Tuesday here on Locked On Jaguars. Hey, Jaguar fans, this is Tony Wiggins with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. It's called Get Upside. My listeners are earning cash back for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use the promo code TOUCHDOWN for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first fill up. Cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN once again for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 or $300 a year in cash back. There's no catch. That's hardcore cash in a year. The cash gets put back right to your account, and you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift card for Amazon or other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN to get 25 cents per gallon or more cash back on your first tank. Thank you again for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen. All right, so I broke Twitter today because I said that a little bird. I'm not going to reveal my sources, but let me just tell you this. I'm not one of those dudes to make up stuff because I don't have to clout chase, and nor do I care to. In fact, I kind of want to be as discreet as I possibly can be about most of the stuff that I say and the people that I talk to. Therefore, I promise you I will never lie to you about stuff like this. And I think most people actually believe me, but some folks get upset when you tell them something they don't want to hear. In fact, I actually got a phone call and a text from a veteran member of the media. He said, I think they believe you. I just think they didn't want to hear it. So therefore they call you an idiot and question your reporting. And one guy even said it was irresponsible. I don't know where the hell that come from, but anywho, it doesn't surprise me that if a guy like Trent Baalke does love a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, when he's had guys like that. When you think about Ray McDonald, you think about Justin Smith, he's had that overachieving, hardworking guy on his teams before. A guy that's sort of infectious, a guy that plays a certain way. And I think when he envisions Aiden Hutchinson, he envisions him on the other side of Josh Allen. I don't like it. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is more twitchy and has a larger upside. But I heard some interviews with Kayvon, and he's a little bit of a diva, and I don't know if that's something that you want anyway. I'm on record saying that I love Evan Neal. I absolutely love Evan Neal as a football player. I would not take the Hamilton kid out of Notre Dame. I'm not taking a safety that high unless he's Sean Taylor, the late, great Sean Taylor, and I don't think Hamilton's that good. I think you have to look at Evan Neal. I think he's a difference maker, and I think you plant him at right tackle and not worry about Trevor Lawrence running for his life for the next 10 years. And he's also a guy that's versatile enough to can play on the edge, on the left side. It just changes the profile of your team, and he gives you that big physical dude up front. And you know, there's this old saying in the NFL. I don't think I know exactly what the saying is, but when in doubt, just take a big guy, right? And Evan Neal is as big as they come. More importantly, a point that I made a couple of weeks ago is this: if I had to bet that he could block Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau every single day of the week and twice on Sunday, he'd do it. If I had to bet that those guys were going to be able to move him and get around him, I wouldn't be so sure. Obviously, if we could pick anybody, I'd take Will Anderson, the non-draft eligible edge rusher at Alabama, because I think he's a super freak who plays with a high motor and is very versatile and unstoppable. But we can't worry about him because he's not in the draft. Wide receiver, they can address wide receiver in round 2. And I know I always say don't just blanketly say that you're going to take a guy in that round. But with the way that these boards are shaping up, there's going to be a chance possibly to move back into the first round since the Jaguars pick so high and get the receiver who may not make it to day 2, whether it be Jahan Dotson, Chris Olave, who I think he's going to be gone because I think he's fantastic. The Jaguars, what they need to do is just address their talent level as a whole and gear that towards getting more guys on offense who can really, really play and make life easier for Trevor Lawrence. All right. So we ain't going to be sitting here trying to defend our credentials and defend who our sources are and all of that stuff. I ain't going to get into that. But I will tell you this. If I told you where I got this information, you wouldn't question it again. Ever. And that's just it. So with that being said, I'm waiting for the coaching news. That's why I did this podcast a little bit late today, because they interviewed Byron Leftwich for a second time today. And I thought we might get a chance that something happens. I'll try to get it a little earlier tomorrow, but I'll still be waiting with bated breath over the next few days. I'll be at the Senior Bowl next week. So some of our shows will have obviously a different background because we're going to originate from Mobile and do those shows from Mobile. And hopefully I can get you guys a lot of information from what I see firsthand with my own 2 eyes over at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. With that being said, you guys, man, do what we always say. Continue to take care of each other. And we thank you for joining us here on Locked On Jaguars until tomorrow, when we can find out some more information, and I'll bring it to you as quickly as possible. If there's any breaking news, I'll make sure we record and put a clip out of if there's any news on the coaching front. But so far, it's been kind of quiet, and we'll see what's going on with that. Until next time, y'all take care of each other. Thanks for joining me here on Locked On Jaguars.